Hey everyone, Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a new 2016 album review. And today we're going to be looking into the new album from Revocation entitled Great Is Our Sin, which came out today. Now, this is the band's sixth full length studio album released through Metal Blade Records. Now, for any of you who aren't familiar with Revocation, they're a technical death metal, with a little bit of a thrash metal influence from Boston, Massachusetts, that formed in the year 2000. Now, I discovered Revocation about, I think it was like a few years ago. It was around the time they put out their self titled album. I checked that out and I thought, wow, this is actually really good. Good for a band I never discovered before. This is a really great impression. And then I went and checked out all their other stuff and I'm liking that. I'm like, wow, it's really good. And this new album is actually a first album with a new member because after the new drummer, since Phil Dubois, their previous drummer, left and they got replaced. He's now got a new drummer, Ash Pearson, who used to play drums for 3 Inches of Blood, and he just fits really well with Revocation. And yeah, and this album, of course, is the follow up to 2014's Deathless, which I thought was a really good album, one of my favorite albums of 2014. But the question is, does this album actually top Deathless or exceed it? In my honest opinion, I think it has definitely. I feel like I said, with Revocation, I mean, they just continue to get better and better with each album. They kind of stepped it up even more. And one thing to note about is the guitar playing from Dave Davidson and Dan Gargiulo. Both of their guitar playing is just really great. Just the riffs they come up with and the soloing, especially David Davidson, is just insane. And like the vocals that he does, just insane. And I noticed he does a little bit more of the clean vocals, especially on some of the choruses from what I've heard. It's just really good. The bass playing is pretty audible from Brent Bamberger. I mean, you can hear the bass a little bit more as on previous releases. The drumming. I mean, Ash Pearson did a really good job with this album. Like, pretty much stepped up from what Phil did previously with the previous albums. But with this new album, it's just still like sounds like the same old Revocation, but they just get to get better and better. Like I said. Without further ado, let's dive into this track by track. Now, the album opens up with Arbiters of the Apocalypse, which is just a really good way to open up this album. Just a fast, relentless riff. And this song pretty much sounds like very old school thrash, kind of like Megadeth Slayer. And I really like that. It's a great way to kick this album started off with a bang. Then we get to a Theater of Horrors, which kind of starts off very energetic before it kind of just slows down a bit to a little slower pace, and it's just a good song. It's pretty interesting to say the least. Then we get to Monolithic Ignorance. Now, this song pretty much kind of sounds very mellow death kind. This sounds very melodic death metal. I really love this song a lot. One of my favorite songs off this album. It's just wow. Crumbling Imperium, which kind of has a really good killer bass riff from Brett. It's just one of his standout bass playing on this album. It's sort of like the riffs because kind of weaves in and out of the guitar riff, which I thought was pretty interesting, and just the solo just sounds very magical with just some really shredding melody. It's a really good song. Another one of my favorite songs, I have to say. And this is then we get to a Communion, and this is sort of like the turning point where they pretty much crank up their instruments. And it's just another good song. This album is just wow. I was really impressed with the. Then we get to the Exultation, which is a pretty interesting song. This actually has a guest solo from Marty Friedman, who you probably best know him as the former guitar player of Megadeth and my favorite guitarist of all time. And the guest solo he does on this song is really well done. It's just well executed. Profamus Vulgus, just another good song. I love that. Copenhagen Heresy, which just has some blasts of death metal, and I pretty much love the play between the instrumentation on this song. It's really good. Only the Spineless Survive, which just has a very, very chaotic solo in there. It's pretty much sounds like a perfect song to play live. It's pretty much sounds like it could be a good live song, just very well executed. Then we get to a Cleaving Giants of Ice, which just has a very melancholic chorus and just some very melodic death metal like verses in there. It's a really good song. And of course, the album closes off with a cover of Altars of Sacrifice by Slayer. And honestly, this is a really good cover, I have to say. But then I think Revocation does a lot of good covers like this, and on self-titled they covered Dire Z by Metallica, but Revocation just does some really well done covers, and I actually love this cover a lot. Now, overall, Great Is Our Sin by Revocation is a really good album, and they just, like I said, continue to get better and not better and better. I don't think I can name a bad. I don't think there's ever a bad album from, and they never failed to release a bad album. And just props to you, Revocation, for making a good album. If any of you guys are watching this, so yeah, if I were to give this out from a score, I'd probably give this like probably a solid 8.5 out of 10. And so yeah, that's my review of the new Revocation, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Keep it metal.